Welcome, Professional Rookies Podcast. And yes, we are in August, baby. What does August mean?
I was just going to ask you. I don't know.
See, everyone's like, why do you have
What's
that
the big
guy
deal?
as a partner? Football season, baby. College football officially kicks off. So I was in the American Athletic Conference Media Day this week. I worked at UCF. These dogs are wrestling. They're going to knock my coffee over. I'm going to lose my SHIT. Knock it off.
What if you can't spell?
So UCF actually is the first team in the American to kick off their season because they play on a Thursday night. I want to say it's like 31 days away. My math might be off. But yeah, football season.
Yay.
You excited? Yeah.
Super
Whatever.
excited.
Nerd. So welcome. We have a special guest today. We're not going to bring him in yet because we're going to do our little, back and forth a little bit. We got to, talk about what happened this week, what kind of exercise regimen Beef got into.
Yeah.
But anyway, special guest. You guys are going to love him. We'll bring him in a couple minutes. But anyway, Beef, how's your weekend?
Pretty good.
Week? I should say week.
If you ever really want to feel like how insignificant things are, it's like, what do you got to go for the week? I don't know. I'm just racking my brain trying to come up with stuff. I went to the doctor this week. And I know you were going to talk about
You didn't tell me you went to the doctor.
Yeah, I did.
No, you didn't. But
no,
why
I
did
didn't
you
tell
go?
you, but I did.
You're not dying on me, are
Well,
you?
no. Well, slow death,
We're all dying. That's besides the point.
Well, I don't know. I went to go get a checkup like an idiot because there's really, and the doctor looked at me. It's bad when the doctor walks in and he's got your paperwork in front of you, and he's like, so how you feeling? I was like, oh, I'm good. He's like, no, really, like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I'm okay. He's like, are you sure? So I'm going, well, what? And so he showed me the numbers and the number.
Your blood work probably.
Yeah, listen, let's just say, oh boy, the dog's almost, let's just say you could take the blood out of my veins and probably put it in a motor vehicle and it would run.
So what did he say to do?
Pretty much everything the exact opposite of everything that I'm doing. Don't eat crap. I got something wrong. I think I'm getting like an ulcer or something too.
I could see that.
Yeah, I'm getting like an ulcer. So he's like, "Don't eat all the good shit." He says, "See, I said it. I didn't.
You can say it. You can say shit.
All the good stuff that I like to eat." He said, "Don't." And I have to take medicine now. I have to take medicine for my cholesterol, and I should probably work out.
Exercise is the best medicine. You know that. I'm
every
not going to beat you up.
Every night I go to bed. I'm like, I'm gonna go run in the morning. I'm gonna go run in the morning. No, because there's.
So we
better things to do.
Me and Brian golfed yesterday, and by the time this gets aired, 3 days ago, and a couple errant shots, and a couple were like around a pond, and I made Beef walk to him, get exercise, walk over there, and walk back.
Yeah. So remember, I was told to what was it? Close the toe on the putter,
right.
And
he was leaving the face of his putter way open. He blocking everything. We got that toe closing.
Yeah,
putting like a champ at the end of the day.
I do have to tell you too. I got a report from Rob, our guy on the job up in NYPD, and he said that he was a little disappointed in your answer. He thought you could have been a little quicker.
For which answer?
Remember the trivia quiz?
I got them all right.
You did, but I think he was expecting somebody with your expertise.
131 schools.
He said you should have been faster.
I'm a multiple choice person. I've always tested better in multiple choice, and I get them right. But so I'll give you. So my doctor again.
Okay,
I told you guys. PSA, public service announcement. Get your colonoscopy. It will save your life. So I waited. I did it when I was 50, obviously, but they say you can. 45 is really the age to do it. So it wasn't that bad. The stuff you drink is better than what it used to be.
Oh, yeah?
It's still horrible.
Does it have any alcohol in it?
No. It's very sweet, and it cleans you out, and you have to fast for a day. But the procedure itself was great. Anesthesiologist was great. Don't feel anything. You don't remember anything. I felt great waking up, and I did. So I had a polyp removed, and the doctor said, it's normal. I'll send it off. But I believe that's what, if you don't get those treated,
they turn
those
into
polyps can turn into cancer. Yeah. And so there's no excuse not to do it. So this is my plea to guys out there: go get your colonoscopy. So it was not that bad.
Wasn't that bad?
No.
My doctor was telling me to get my tonsils out.
I think you're a little old for that.
That's what I thought. But he said because they're so big.
Mine are still in.
He said because they're so big. Because I've always had big tonsils.
He's got a big mouth.
I got a big mouth. Yeah. But he said you would sleep. I would sleep better, and I snore really bad.
You know what else would make you sleep better?
Lose weight,
lose a few pounds, but whatever.
So what do I do? What do I got to do? I got to
start exercising.
Well, it's just so like unappealing. I don't know. The older I get, I know. Go ahead, say it.
Running, Brian, and cycling, Brian, because you were avid at both.
Yeah.
You were like totally different person.
Yeah, but it's more fun to watch like The Sopranos, and
I know, but in all seriousness, I'm more worried about your health. I mean, as a friend,
I gotta do it.
That's one thing.
I gotta find the motivation.
Listen, I'm not one of these people. I'm not body shaming. I'm not fat shaming.
No, go ahead, do it. It might work.
we live in a society now where it's like they're glorifying that.
Yeah,
it's not healthy.
No.
Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
right. I'm just talking about health. The other big topic last week, the cold case thing. It's still going. I got some more things I got to do. But that's why we're going to bring in our special guest. So we'll get back to that. The house issue was big. I got a lot of messages on the house. I think the deal is going to blow up and fall through, but you never know. Hail Mary might come here in the last minute, so we'll see. Again, it's a want, not a need, so we'll see.
Let me interject on this for a second.
Don't get too specific.
No, but we can talk. Having conversations with Jeannie, and she's like, so I said they're moving. They want to move again, and she's like, well, "What do you mean again?" And so I had to give her the breakdown of the Angolia moves. And how
be our fifth house. I'm sorry.
That's right. Fifth. So she's like, they move that much. I'm like, yes, they move that much. I said, and I
get that from my parents. My parents were always like that.
That's what I told her. I said, I know, but my personal favorite one, for anybody who doesn't know, I think we may have talked about. Did we talk about this?
I bought my next door neighbor's house.
I still think that's the best one.
Like literally my next door neighbor's house.
I remember the move.
We talked about it last week.
We're carrying it out. I see now we're good. It's bad when you're starting to repeat yourself in the podcast. But okay, go ahead.
No, to be continued. I guess we'll give you an update next week. Until I know it's completely over.
If we have any super fans in the area when the move happens.
I flew for the first time this week without a mask, which was awesome. I still can't believe.
The first time?
Since I didn't have to wear a mask. Okay. The last time I flew I did the Pitt and Virginia Tech spring games in April, and you saw to wear a mask. I think wasn't very long after that where the mask became optional. I still can't believe. So I fly Delta.
Yeah.
I still can't believe the amount of people wearing masks. Now, when I say that, I would say out of the entire plane, 20%. So 2 out of 10. But man,
there's a lot of people that don't. I know as soon as they said take them off, everyone's
so much more comfortable. But yeah, flew to Dallas, had the American Athletic Conference Media Day. I was there for a couple days, taped some stuff, but it's actually one day. Had a great time working with Chris Budden from ESPN and Morgan Uber, who works for the American. Good day. Long day, but fun.
What is Media Day? And
every conference, every team actually has a media day, but every conference has a media day. So you bring in the coaches from every team, and then they usually pick out a couple players.
Right.
And we can ask them some questions, and the media can ask them some questions, and it's just exactly what it is. It's a media day. So talk about the season upcoming, maybe what, why your season wasn't so good the year before, or why it was so good. The media does a preseason poll, who they predict to win the conference, and we have different highlights, and it just kind of highlight the teams getting because now just about this week everyone will start practicing. Remember I said it's August, and then actually when this plays, I think every team will be in the country will be in summer camp practice.
I know. Like for basketball, they have what's called Midnight Madness because that's the first time that they can actually, like the NCAA has rules when they can practice,
same
right? So Midnight Madness is like that first day.
Football's similar. Right? It's based on when your first game is. You know what I mean?
You have a certain period of time that you could start out from that.
You have so many days. So like UCF is probably already practicing because, like I said, they're one of the earlier ones. So, but yeah, it was good. And of course, flying back, I get to Atlanta, and it's just I obviously experience what everyone else is experiencing. My plane's at the gate.
Right.
To go from Atlanta to Orlando, and it's sitting there, and then all of a sudden on my app, boom, pops up, delayed. I'm thinking, what the hell? And so
it's crew. They don't have enough people.
So because I'm going to tell you what I think happened.
Yeah, go ahead.
And our special guest that can hear us, we told him we'd beat him in like 5 or 7 minutes, spent 10 minutes. Sorry, special guest. Just hang in there. I'm sure he's laughing, drinking coffee.
Is he still on the
enjoying
phone?
The mountains? If not, then we don't have a guest.
Hung up.
So the way it was, because I worked the media day and then I flew from Dallas that night.
Right.
Okay. And of course, you lose an hour because you're going from Central to Eastern. So I had the last flight from Atlanta to Orlando. There's a ton of them, but I had the last one.
Right.
So it was leaving at 11:42.
Oh crap!
So I was getting in at like 1 a.m. anyway. So when it came up delayed, I'm like,
gonna get stuck here.
I'm like, crap.
Yeah.
If this plane doesn't go, this is the last one of the night. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And it was packed. I mean, every plane to Orlando is packed. I mean, it was packed. There was people everywhere.
Yeah.
But the plane was at the gate, so that's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, they're waiting for a flight crew from another plane to get in, right?
Yep.
So it got delayed about a good hour and a half, okay? And then all of a sudden they say, okay, we're going to start boarding. And I'm like, I didn't see anyone run up to the gate or anything like that. So the crew was on the plane. So one of two things. The crew either, there was a time limit thing, right? They couldn't take off.
Yeah, they have,
They had to get to another level of time.
Right.
So either that was it, or when we did get on the plane, we delayed even longer because they said, hey, we have 60 passengers coming in from New York City. They're going to land at the gate right next to us, whatever, B12.
Yeah.
And so we're waiting for them. So because it was the last flight of the night, they held it for them.
Okay.
And I actually don't have a problem with that because I would want them to hold the plane for me as well.
Do you want to get stuck there?
Especially being the last plane of the night. So we didn't,
Sure.
I didn't get home till 3 a.m. So, but it is what it is. It was a good flight. It was
the
fine.
road warrior.
The road warrior. But I
That
actually
is really a red eye, huh?
I actually don't mind traveling. I usually, we get to like November, you kind of get, and plus because I didn't really travel that much last year because I did the games from the home studio.
Yeah, we didn't like that.
So I'm ready to go. But
Yeah.
all right, so okay, we can't keep the special
All right.
guests. So real quick though, because we talked about me doing cold case,
Right.
going back in a couple weeks to OPD, and Brian's actually done some cold case, former homicide. We figured we would bring one of our good friends who is really, and I mean this sincerely, one of, if not the best investigators I've ever known. Has a great resume, great career. He now teaches. He's a professor at a college, and Brian will introduce him here.
Stealing all my thunder.
And he actually kind of started cold case with OPD,
Right.
and he's a DNA expert, and he's probably laughing. He's like, I'm not an expert. He is. So we figured, let's have him on. He can bust my balls a little bit about going back. We're going to bust his balls a little bit. We'll tell some stories, and then we'll have some fun.
Yeah, this is
and he's a big UCF fan, so we'll talk a little football.
The executive decision was made yesterday. Hey, let's have Mike on. Yeah, okay. So,
You can't say his name without introducing
why
him
not?
first.
That'd be all right.
Say the credentials.
And when you're saying that, most people probably already know who we're talking about. So this guy's he retired after 28 years at OPD, which is an accomplishment in and of itself. I'm striving towards that. We'll see what happens if they don't blow me out of there first. He had 13 years in homicide. That's a long time.
That's very long.
Listen. I did 4.5.
Before you got kicked out.
Before I got kicked out.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Oh, we're going there now, huh?
I'm joking. Go ahead. I've been kicked out of places.
See? But 13 years is a long time. He worked Pulse, some very high profile cases.
All the high profile cases
Yeah.
at OPD in the last. Well, I'm going
to say it was about what he retired about 3 years ago.
In
now.
his entire time there.
Yep. Now this is crazy. At OPD, at any agency, there's lead detectives for these homicides. Moreschi, this guy, I gave his name. So Mike Moreschi, he worked 60 leads in 13 years. I don't do math very well, but let's see. Let's figure that out. So I'm gonna, while we're doing this,
it's 3.5 a year.
3.5,
which is, people are like, oh, that's a lot.
Yes,
there's detectives that take one lead a year.
Yeah, so 3.5 a year for 13 years. But I tell you, some years were probably busier than others. He teaches. And I've spoken at some of his classes. He's a great teacher, very dynamic, very fun to watch. But he teaches he's a UCF professor. He's been doing that for 7 years. Brevard College for 2.5 years. So when he retired, he moved up to Brevard, North Carolina, which is a very smart thing to do. And he, if you're like talk to him long enough, he'll rub it in your face that his deck sees like mountains out of the back, and it's always cooler and nicer.
He's got to pay those North Carolina taxes. I mean,
Whatever.
he should have found a college in Tennessee, but whatever.
Like you said, Mikey was doing cold cases before cold cases was a thing, and when I was moving through the ranks of detectives, and I was in robbery, and I got to work a few cases with him before I went to homicide. It was really cool. There's a few people in that agency that I really would call a mentor.
Yeah.
Mike's the first one. And to watch him, you know me. I stress about everything, right? Everything. And Mike was such a voice of reason. There was a few things, and Mike was just such a voice of reason. And he was great to learn from because everything was just so, hey, did you do this? Well, no, crap, and like he was so matter of fact about it. But when you think about it, it was like a genius thing to think about, and you just didn't. And so there's so much. He was such a wealth of knowledge and just very easy. He never put an air on about him like, hey, I'm better than everybody else. He never felt that with Moreschi. He was always like, hey, let me help you.
In my entire time there, so I became a detective in 2008.
Right.
So when did Mike retire? Well, we'll ask him.
Yeah,
but,
we'll ask him.
So, I mean, I had a solid 10-year relationship with Mike, at least.
Yeah.
I've never seen him get mad.
No. There is one story that floats around OPD.
He's gotten mad before, I'm sure, but he just has that kind of demeanor.
I take that back. I think in the case that I would say that he did get upset. And even when he was mad, we worked the case together when...
You were a lot closer with him because you worked cases with him directly.
And we were very upset with the way things are going, but even then he didn't show it too much. And, we forgot to put in here, too, that he actually went to FDLE for a little bit, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, for a short period of time after he retired from OPD because they actually... from my understanding, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but they actually asked him to come over because they wanted him to kind of set up that genealogy, that genetic genealogy, DNA cold case thing at FDLE. So, and
you also didn't mention, maybe you have it written down there. And you've heard, I've said this before multiple times. So I ended up as a robbery detective. That was, the majority of my investigative work was as a robbery detective. Okay. And I love robbery.
Investigating it, not doing it.
Yeah. Not doing it.
I love robberies.
I think people figured that out. Homicide detectives are, bar none, the best investigators, period. So I tell people all the time, because I'm going to knock the feds. I don't care. So because of TV, and movies, everybody thinks FBI is like the end all be all, right? That's what they think, though.
That's what they think. One would think.
And I've said this before. If, God forbid, if something happened to a family member, and I needed an investigator,
right,
I would go to any, mid-major city. And the reason why I say major, mid-major, because the volume of cases that those guys got. You just talked about how many cases Mike's had, and that doesn't even the 60. Those are, as leads. That's not even all the seconds he's done.
All things.
And I would say, who's your most experienced homicide detective? That's who I want doing the investigation because they're the best. What I was going to say is, but before that, I think the second best investigators for what they have to do are sex crimes, or what's called SVU now.
Yeah.
And Mike did sex crimes before homicide for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
He'll correct us. So, I mean, he literally had a 20-year career investigating, the most important. I mean, every crime's important, but you know what I mean? Like the heart of the heart. You know what I mean? Like the big time stuff. So it just goes to show you what kind of detective he was.
Yeah. So I guess we should probably bring him on. We were talking him up. So.
18 minutes and 40 seconds we made him sit. Bring him on.
All right, here we go. Let's see if this works. You here?
Mike, you there?
I'm here. I'm glad you guys are recording this because you could play it at my funeral. It sounds like a eulogy.
Hey, that's a good idea. Don't be dying anytime. Don't fall off a cliff up there in Brevard, North Carolina. Okay?
Trip over the deck. What are you doing, huh? Hey, how are you, Mike?
Great. So I got to tell you about AAC Media Day, Rene.
Let's hear it.
I'm not on social media at all, but I always I ask my wife every week. It's like, hey, what game's Rene doing this weekend? Because I like to tune into whatever game.
Yep.
So when you guys mentioned that last week that you were going to be doing it, I was like, yeah, let me tune in. So to be honest, I fast forwarded to the UCF stuff because like you said, I'm a UCF fan,
which is what most people do. But yeah.
So I fast forwarded to that, and I realized it's like, and this is like Media Day, and they went to the guy from the Sentinel first, which is the newspaper in Orlando. I understood that. Every other person that they went to, I had never heard of that. So I guess if you have a website, you could consider yourself media. And and the one guy asked Gus Malzahn about the backup punter from Australia.
So you want to, Mike? You'll love this story. So a little inside knowledge. I don't care. I'll say it. So I worked with Chris Budden, And Chris is like a superstar now at ESPN. She's on like a huge package, like primetime stuff. She was at the Final Four. So, and then there's lowly little me. I get to work with Chris. But Chris is awesome. So we don't know these people either. Like we know some of them, like you talk about Matt Murschel from the Sentinel. And, I actually know some of the people, especially when it's Orlando. I know some of the people. But a lot of them we don't. So she's next to me, and we really can't talk. But she writes on a piece of paper, let's play a game when the people come up and they come on because we were doing it from Zoom. Are they print? Are they TV? Are they radio? Or are they podcasts? Trying to guess like what they do. Because you're right. I mean, you can have a podcast like me and Beef.
We're journalists.
We probably could have got credentialed. Beef could have got credentialed to jump on there and ask some questions.
That'd been great. I could ask him questions. I'd be like, is this football? Are we here for football or what sport are we here for? Yeah.
But,
any two idiots with a couple microphones could have a podcast.
Really, it's all the equipment. Yeah, exactly. That was given to me so far. But how's Brevard has a football team, Division III up there. Right? How are they going to be?
I hope we're good. We've had a couple winning seasons in a row since I've been up here. COVID really put the zap on Division, 2 and 3 football. And, which has kind of helped some of these smaller schools too, because we have people that are now going into their 5th and 6th year because they got that pass. They actually got, a couple years of a pass of eligibility to keep playing. And, our college is small, so we're our students' advisors too. They're academic advisors. And when that COVID ruling came down, I had a bunch of athletes picking up minors so they could stay in school. And
there's some adjunct professors up there playing. Sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we've got a few of them that are going into like I said, they're mid to late 20s. They're still playing. So, but it's fun. It's fun. It's Division III is. You have, nobody here has got the delusion that this is going to, turn into something for them. They're playing their sport because they love it. They love to play.
So what do you think about while we're on football before we get to the boring law enforcement stuff? How do you think UCF's going to be? They were picked third. They were picked third in the media poll, but it was really tight. Houston was 1, Cincy was 2, UCF was 3. What do you think?
It's going to be the defense, Rene. It's always coming down. Like Gus Malzahn was talking about the linebackers. I think are secondary, which is always good. UCF's produced a lot of professional defensive backs over the years, but it's going to be up front with the defensive line and the linebackers. We're going to score no matter who's playing quarterback, and
it's going to be John Reese Plumlee. I would be shocked if it's not.
Yeah, I would be too. But as last year proved for us too, it's good to have some depth at quarterback. But Houston looks really good. I mean, Houston could actually turn out to be this year's Cincinnati, I think.
Well,
but again, we'll see.
And Dana Holgerson was like, he did not like they were picked first, and here, but he said it in his remarks, because obviously you didn't watch it, you just watched UCF. The average age of
Reedy's getting a phone call.
I'm getting a phone call. Don't worry about those beeps. It's my wife. I don't know. I'm not getting it.
Send it to voicemail. You get in trouble for that.
I don't know.
Do it.
I don't even know how to do that.
So
the average age of a starter for Houston this year is 22. So
that's huge.
Yeah, it's just so much experience on that team. Clayton Tune, and the funny thing is, Mike, every team in the American, 10 of the 11 bring back their starting quarterbacks, except Cincinnati. They're the one. But the funny thing is, so Ben Bryant started his career at Cincinnati, realized he wasn't going to beat out Desmond Ridder. So the staff helped him transfer to Eastern Michigan, where I did a couple of his games last year. He threw for like 3,300 yards. Ridder leaves, gets drafted. Ben Bryant, as my phone rings again, transfers back this year and now is vying to become the starter to end his career at Cincinnati. So it's kind of crazy.
Well, the one thing about Division III athletics, we don't have to worry about the transfer portal too much. Occasionally we'll have somebody transfer if they get an offer like from a Division II school or something, but that doesn't happen very often. But yeah, Division III sports is fun. Like, what I paid for my season tickets at UCF, I give to the athletic program. And I get my name in the program here. I'm a huge booster at Brevard College because of that.
Do you get to go to the special like club level room for the big
we
donors?
get fed before. Yeah, we do. We get fed before every football game and basketball game. So yeah, get the catered meal. It's pretty nice. So.
Nice. Go ahead. Are you all right?
No, I'm now preoccupied because my wife called me twice, but I don't know if it's they ran to the supermarket. My daughter's with her. They're going back to college, so I just want to make sure nothing. This was
what was the pressing thing?
Do we need dog food? the dogs run the house, and the answer is yes.
Yes.
So there we go. Okay.
It's always,
crisis averted.
Always,
well, you know, when the phone rings like that, I'm thinking, oh my god, they got in a fender bender, or someone hit them, right? So,
well,
that's why I was like,
hold on. The only people that hit the cars in this place is
so,
you. Yeah.
I back, Mike. I back. So.
Wait, can I say so? When you pull in the Gridiron Ranch, right? When you pull in the Gridiron Ranch, it's you got a gate and it's a long driveway,
and it's an L shape at the top.
But the reason I say is because when you pull in, it's like an exotic car kind of parking lot. You know, you got an Audi and you got what is that? Is it a Mercedes? Right?
No, it's a BMW.
BMW, and then you got the Jaguar, and you got a couple other cars.
I have a GMC pickup. Okay.
Right. Okay. Well, you're the one that's driving that. But anyway, I digress. So a couple weeks ago, Rene's like, don't. Listen, when you pull out, because everybody, Mike, you know how I drive, right? Mike, nobody lets me drive the police cars because I can't drive. And so Rene's like, don't back into the car because Jess.
So a couple months ago, my wife.
You want me to tell the story?
Go ahead. Tell the story.
Jess backed into
BMW.
The BMW. And so you had to get it fixed.
She was home from college.
Right.
She just wasn't used to the car being there.
So anyway, be careful.
So I had to get it fixed.
Last week, what happened?
I backed into it. The same car, same spot, same everything. I go, you got to be effing kidding me, man. And it's my fault. I just didn't turn around. And so my daughter's like, are you kidding me? So I had to get that fixed. And she's leaving for college tomorrow. But I did get it. I got it fixed again. Just pissing away money. I told the body shop guy, I go, I'm like your ATM.
He loves it. He sees you coming in. He's like, yeah, what you need today?
Oh, God. I got that hook up through OPD.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. I mean, it's like a Seinfeld. Like when you get a good mechanic, a good body shop guy, a good, you keep him, you hold on to him.
Yeah. So Mikey, listen.
All right, let me shut up. Let's bring Mikey in here.
See.
Mikey, wait, hold on. Should I be going back to cold case, Mike? Am I crazy or what?
I was surprised that you were going back.
Everybody, you don't know how many text messages I got. They're like, "What are you doing?"
Well, with your problem, Rene, and the house thing, and how your wife doesn't beat your ass over this thing.
She wants to. She wants to. It's very hectic in my house.
You can't sit still.
That is my problem. Yeah.
I'm very happy sitting still up here in the mountains, and it's funny because I listen to y'all's podcast. It's like with your line, I'll never forget. All I do is sit up here and try to forget everything that happened in the last 28 years. So,
make it stop.
Well, listen, go ahead.
It's a challenge, and I would say this, get ready for some failures,
that's right up my alley, brother. Then we're good.
Yeah. Because and kind of like what you talked about at the beginning too, what you're going to find with cold cases, and there's a lot of fascination with them. People get fascinated by things that went for so long without being solved and then get solved. What you're going to find is that they didn't go unsolved because of a lack of effort. Like you said, you had guys that were working cases for Orlando, and this goes for any police department, back in the day, that put everything into those. And sometimes the good guys don't win. And the vast majority of cold cases get solved because technology has caught up with it. It was the DNA, it was the genealogy, like Mike Fields has done over the last couple of years. It's not somebody out there having an attack of conscience and saying, I have this new information. So now that being said, it does not mean that these cases don't warrant your attention. Right. And I think I already kind of, Mike Fields and I talk, and we were actually in Philadelphia. He and I are part of this group called the VDOC Society, which is a cold case think tank that meet monthly up in Philadelphia. And so I know which case I think you're starting out with, and that case in particular deserves, all the attention that we can give it.
Yeah.
And even though there might not be that physical evidence out there for you guys.
Yeah, we talked about it, and not specific, but I think in general, a lot of these cases, and I think I like to get your opinion on it. I think because they happened so long ago and technology wasn't there back then like it is today, that maybe, you know, the preservation of evidence wasn't as good as because there was no thought, right, of stuff. And now you fast forward 30, 40 years and you might have some evidence, but it's not preserved like you wish it was, right, to give you that one avenue.
Yeah, and you can't. I mean, that's one of the things too. The frustrations of. In fact, I know particularly a double murder case that's been cold for years now. That if that case were to have happened today, it would have been solved actually pretty easily. Mm-hmm. But because it happened back in the 80s when you didn't have some technology available to you, it did go unsolved. And it's probably, for me, there's a couple of infamous cold cases at OPD, and that's definitely either one or two on that list of most infamous unsolved cases.
Is that the one that I'm the contact on for FDLE?
I don't know.
No, remember you said you put me on because the one person was flagged.
Oh yeah, you know what? And see, that's the other thing you're going to find too is that going through these cases, like the detectives, rightly or wrongly, will they hint of like, yeah, you know what, this is the person that did it. We just can't prove it.
Yeah.
There's a few cases in there like that, and Mike and I actually worked a couple like that where it's very obvious who did it. You just can't, get to that, because what I tell people, especially in homicide, you're not looking for probable cause. You have to work to beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to, whether it's a cold case or not. You have to, give the state attorney's office the best case that they can have to prosecute, because and that needs to be beyond a reasonable doubt, not just a probable cause. You're not just looking to make an arrest; you're looking to get a conviction.
So what you're saying is the expectations aren't very high. So that's probably good for me.
Well, that was the thing. Like back when I was doing, we had a couple of cold case grants, and they were specifically for using DNA to solve cold cases. And we got that grant twice. And I had some people ask me, don't you want to do it full time? And I do believe that there is the one advantage that you and Mike will have going for you is that I do believe that there is momentum to an investigation. And if you're doing cold cases while you're working active cases, and the active cases take precedent, obviously, you start off and then you got to stop and go work an active case and then try to pick back up a month ago. And that's tough to do.
Yeah.
But the reason that I resisted to doing it full time too is because, if you're working cold cases full time, you need to put some wins on the board, right?
Yeah.
You need to solve some cases, and it's, like I said, it's not, it's not easy.
Someone asked me that, like, what's the expectation? And I said to him, and maybe rightfully or wrongfully, you correct me here. I said, really, if you can solve one a year, that's probably a win, right? For that cold case unit, right? I think the department's probably happy with that, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. And that's, yeah. If you can just every once in a while put a win on the board, and I think you talked about it last time with Mike and some. Even some of the hollow victories, where the people are dead.
Yeah. And, closure for the family for sure. Yeah,
it is to a certain extent, but that's the thing about doing it as a full time, job and investigating cold cases. It's going to be like, you're going to be expected to every once in a while give them a reason to have a press conference and talk about a case that was solved. But I think there's also I think it's. As far as like public perception, people want to, believe and understand that the police don't stop in the investigations. And so I think there's always that need for cold case squads and, squad of two. I don't think two people makes up a squad.
Correct. Yeah.
But cold case, people looking into it and that type of thing. So,
it's a year contract, much like my ESPN contract. So, they could cut me, tell me I'm no good.
Yeah,
so, it is. There's,
And people live on. No, but I think you're gonna enjoy it. I know Mike, talking to him, he enjoys it as well. But I tell this story. When we first got the DNA grant from the federal government, which you could do a lot of things in your career, but if you bring money into a police department, that you're a hero already. So we brought in it was like $100. And I took all the credit for it, but as you all know, Lillian Draven.
Lillian writes all the grants. Yeah.
She wrote the grant, and we wouldn't have gotten it. Well, basically, OPD can't function without Lillian. But so when we got it, it was announced in the newspaper that that we had gotten this grant, and they were going to look at old cold cases. And so there was a couple I had in mind, like to start off with, some of the higher profile cases, to go after. But that day that the newspaper article appeared, I got a call from the lobby, and they said, "There's this lady that wants to see you." And so I went down there, and there was this lady, Beverly Gary was her name, and she introduced herself, and she said, "My daughter Angela was murdered back in 1995. They never caught who did it, and my husband just died, and I just retired as a lunch lady at a local school, and I really just want to know who killed my daughter before I died." And I was like, how could you say no to this?
Right. And
so,
pressure too.
And I knew,
a little pressure on you.
I knew Angela's case, and Angela's case presented some problems because she was what we would have considered a high risk victim.
Yep.
And so people that weren't alive back in the midnight, I think it's hard to comprehend how much the crack cocaine epidemic just devastated families and neighborhoods and back in those days. And that was, Angie fell into that and had to live a certain lifestyle to sustain her addiction. And so I knew about it, and I knew that but it wasn't like one of those big splashy, wanting to, like I said, put that big win on the board thing. But I was like, after I met with Beverly Gary, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And so that was the first case I worked, and we ended up solving it, and we ended up making an arrest and getting a conviction in the case. Thanks to Robin Wilkinson, a very talented prosecutor.
Right.
And after I went and I told Miss Gary that we had solved the case and made an arrest, and she was obviously very happy and thanked me. And I was like, looking back on it, that lady knew exactly what she was doing, and she played me like a fiddle to get me to work her daughter's case first. And I was glad to do it. As like I said, I knew this, like it was having this grant and this money. I was like, well, you know what? I'm not going to get skunked.
Right.
We're gonna at least got one, and that was what was important.
Was it DNA?
Yeah,
DNA solved that one, Mike?
Yeah, DNA solved that one. We solved a lot of cold cases with DNA back then, just simply because back in the 90s, they were doing a certain test called RFLP, and don't ask me what it stands for, but they changed, and they changed to what they call short tandem repeats, and that's what people were being entered into the data bank for, or with that technology. So all of the old cases that had been previously tested, using the outdated DNA technology, we sent those back, and we were getting full profiles, searchable profiles, and we were able to solve a lot of cases that way.
No, Mike, with that case, I'm curious, the person who was convicted, was that person's name in the file prior to the DNA, like the new DNA test? Like, was it somebody that was already identified?
No,
okay.
It wasn't. And that was one of the, and I know when Mike and I were working Christine Franke, we kept in touch with the detective who worked that case. Mm-hmm. And, as a detective, you're just like, please don't let it be somebody obvious that I should have known.
Right. Yeah.
Or like, who I just missed. And in neither case was it.
Right.
It was not somebody who was previously in there. And that's why I said that these cases are not, are going cold, not because of a lack of effort on the original detective's part. But yeah, his name was nowhere in the file. Right. And the same with the Christine Franke case. That guy's name was nowhere in that file. And so yeah, you don't.
I would think though, so you get this DNA profile, and I'm assuming when you had the DNA profile, you put it in to the system, it spits this name back out, obviously from experience. But I would think, because I've never really been able to do an interview of a cold case suspect, and I would think that there's a lot of uphill challenges. Did you actually sit down with the suspect and actually get an interview from him or a statement?
We did.
Okay.
We did. And you know, it's a good point too that you bring up, because if I interview you about something that happened last week,
right,
you know, you should have a pretty decent memory.
Sure.
But if I interview you about something that happened 12 years ago,
right,
there's some plausible deniability.
Exactly.
It's like, you may not remember certain things. But what happened with this suspect in particular, and actually what happened in both those cases was total denials. And sometimes that helps us too.
Yeah, denial's better than a confession. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. But yeah, he did, but yeah, you have like a, you know, in the case where I'm talking, well, it's public record. His name was Albert Taylor.
Right.
He got arrested but we went up. He actually lived up here in North Carolina.
Okay.
And was working at a factory up here. And I showed him a picture of the victim, which is kind of a typical thing that we would do, and say, "Hey, do you know this girl?" And he's like, "No, I don't know her."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay." And then I showed him a second picture.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "That was that girl that was murdered by my mother's house."
Okay. So he knew that part. Yeah.
Yeah. And he said it was all over the news. It was kind of, and he just like, it was all over the news and all this other stuff. And it was a big deal back then. And I knew that it wasn't. I knew because of where this happened.
Right.
Angie's station in life, that it wasn't some high profile case.
Right.
And I actually went back and researched the newspaper, and it was like page 3 of the local section at the bottom.
Right.
And it was this little tiny photograph of her and that type of thing. But yeah, there's that and a couple other things. And like I said, also having a very talented prosecutor on cases, because they, you know, investigating cold cases, it presents its own challenges, but prosecuting them definitely does as well.
Right. And I would think, you know, again, just from me, but I would think sitting there talking to this person, you may not have a memory of what you ate for dinner 12 years ago, but if you killed somebody, it's in there somewhere. You're not forgetting that.
No, but it's like, you know, it's also, you know, this case also, it had a sexual component to it. Yeah. So, but no, I think, you know, I'm happy for you, Rene, but you know, I think you'll have fun. I think you'll have fun working with Mike too. You know, Mike is definitely, and one of the things, like he and I worked a lot of cases together, and we had some success because you know, his strengths were my weaknesses. And one of his strengths is definitely thinking outside the box. And I've told this story a few times, but because even before the Golden Gate Killer and all that was taught through using the genetic genealogy, Mike came to me about this Christine Franke case and said, "Hey, you know, what if we search like these ancestry websites?" And I was like, "Mike, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life." It's like,
famous
you know,
last words.
learn to work with, you know, active homicides before you start going off on this. And you know, I say thank God he didn't listen to me and did his own thing. But he definitely has, you know, unique ways of figuring things out.
You didn't mention his other strength though.
Oh boy.
Vacations. It's a master vacationer,
yeah.
Cruiser, vacationer, you name it. So
yeah, no, he's a pro. He's a pro. You need tips.
Yeah, vacation tips.
For the record, I've known Mike Fields for 20 years as well. And actually, Mike, you guys probably don't remember, he was in robbery for a short time.
Yeah, it was like 5 minutes.
Yeah, so we were, you know, I've worked cases with him for robbery, but yeah, so I've known Mike for a long time. The issue is Mike Moreschi, can Mike Fields put up with me? I guess that's the question. It's not the other way around.
Oh yeah, it's like, you know what? Here's the thing, and I think, you know, there's another thing that you guys like to say in your podcast a lot too. Is like, for anybody that knows you, you know, and if it's not painfully obvious, you know, both of you have this goes for Beef too, because I work. Both of you have that gift to communicate with people, and that's the, you know, I think we would all agree. We've all been detectives. If you were to say what's the key to being a good detective, it's that. It's
communication.
Your ability you're
100% right.
With people, to get information from people that don't want to give it, you know, those types of things. Because that you're going to be dealing with a lot. You know, you're going to be dealing with a lot of people that So you have that gift of gab, Rene.
And you bring up a great point, because there's an issue going on, and I'll say it because I don't, even as a contract employee, I don't care. And beef gets scared of everything, so you don't have to comment beef. So there's an issue at your former agency where, like, you have a lot of young people without experience now getting moved through criminal investigations, and you need that communication. So I tell people all the time, like, when you take, in a perfect world, you would be a patrol officer, midnights patrol for 5, 6, 7, 8 years before you become a detective, because that's, and I want Mike's opinion when I get done with this, because that's where you learn the nuts and bolts, right? You're not going to be a good detective until you're out there in the streets talking with people, communicating. Now the world's kind of different, that people are afraid to talk to people.
Right.
And so now we're losing, and I guess my point is we're losing the great skills that detectives bring to become a detective, and then enhance it doing the job. Would you agree with that, Mike? Or
yeah, well, I'll say this, and one of the things that I deal with a lot of my students, whether it be UCF or Brevard, is they all want to. It's like, yeah, I hear this over and over again. It's like, I want to do what you did. I want to work homicides, but I don't want to work the streets.
Yep.
And so I tell them, it's like, first of all, I don't, whatever your concern is, first of all, do a ride along, get an internship.
Yeah.
I proved, because I said, you will not, there's no agency out there that's going to hire somebody who just graduated from UCF or Brevard College and have you work homicide. And I said, all your experiences build upon yourself. I was a police officer for 15 years, a detective for, 10 of those when I went to homicide, and I still wasn't totally prepared.
You never feel like you have enough experience.
Correct.
And just to equate it to the students, I would say that's like coming out of high school and say, I think I want to work on my doctorate.
Yeah.
Let me just, because that's what it's like. That's like Rene talked about earlier about, like, to me, working homicides was the pinnacle. The stakes are as high as you can get. And it's like, let me skip these levels and just start working on my doctoral thesis. So that's the example I give them, is like, all those things build upon themselves. And, the other thing is, like, you get people, you do need investigative experience, too. And I tell people, it's like, get into, it was kind of a common thing. You go to property first, and then you move on to violent crimes, either it be SVU. A lot of people come from robbery, where you're dealing with violent crimes, you're dealing with violent people, you're dealing with physical evidence and witness testimony, and then you move on. And I think one of the things that OPD does that is right is people that have expressed an interest in homicide, you bring them over, like you did, Beep. You come over and you work a couple cases and say, this is what it's like.
Yep.
And we've had plenty of people back off and say, yeah, that's not for me. And that's fine.
Right.
Figure it out. Yeah, it's not for everybody. And believe me, the lifestyle, and it's tough. And I admire the people that can do it. I can't anymore. I'm a happy has been.
Yeah, but you did it for a long time.
You put your time in. You gave your time. But it's funny.
I'm proud of the career that I had. And I tell people that all the time. I enjoyed it. I miss the people. I do not miss the work. I'll have people at Brevard, the college that I teach at, it's a really small school, and I might have to pick up an extra class here or there just for need. And they're like, "Oh, we're sorry." It's like you're not calling me at 2:00 in the morning to come in and teach.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because Mike says, he mentioned with OPD, one of the things you do is you work through, and you kind of get like a tryout. Right. You say, hey, you tell the homicide sergeant, like, hey, I'm interested in coming over at some point. And they go, okay, no problems. And they have you take
become a second.
Right. So, I was in robbery, and they put me up as a second, and here we go. Mike and I get this case. It was a stabbing. And Mike, did we, nothing ever really came of that case, right? If I remember right?
No.
Right. Because, so it was a stabbing. It was in this apartment complex where it was, kind of like they put homeless people there, like this nonprofit would put homeless people in there, and there was a lot of drinking and everything in this complex. So we had a guy that got stabbed, and we got a suspect, same guy lived in the same complex, right? So I'm like, God, and this, Rene, I say, they put me with Moreschi, right? He's the guy.
Best
so
of the
if
best.
Moreschi says this guy sucks, you're never going over there.
Sure.
If Moreschi says this guy's all right, you're good. So I'm like, holy shit, no pressure here, right? So I'm trying to write everything down, pay attention to everything. So I'm at my robbery desk when we came back to the office, and we have the suspect. They had got him, and they're bringing him back to the office so we can interview him, okay? And so Mike comes over to me from the bunker, the homicide office. He comes over to me, and he says, hey, Beef. I said, yeah. He said, I'm going to let you do the interview. I was like, oh, shit. Okay. So here I am like, well, okay, maybe I should ask him this. I'm trying to get all this ready. And like, God, don't F this up. Please don't F this up. And we go in there. And did we take his clothes before or after, Mike? Because that's a whole nother story in itself.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. It's a whole nother story in and of itself. All right. So yeah, it was before. Yeah. So we get this guy's clothes. And I said there's a lot of drinking going on. This guy, he had an accident. And because we were trying to take his shorts. Because we thought there was blood on him. So,
it wasn't an accident.
Oh, I don't know.
Man.
Yeah, he had an oops. And so we gave him this Tyvek suit to put on. He had no drawers on either, right? So he sits down. This is what you see in homicide, right? So
I know.
So we give him this little Tyvek suit, the ones that the CSIs wear. So and we give it to him because he's got nothing else to wear. And he sits down on the chair with the... on his ass, and he sits down on the chair to put the pants on. I'm like, oh, don't ever sit in that chair again.
Throw that chair
So that's
out.
how this thing starts, right? So then I'm like, they brought him in a certain way and everything. I got to go over my rights, the rights with this guy. So I start going over the Miranda rights. I'm like, don't fuck this up. Just get it done. Get through it. And what does he say at the end?
I want a lawyer.
Can I have a lawyer? I'm like, oh my God, I'm fired. That's it. I'm never getting this job.
Never getting it again.
Mike, how many times did I probably apologize to you after that?
Well, and what's interesting about that is that, and you've brought that up so many times, and it was like, I guess it was impactful to you. But the reason that I had you do the interview instead of me is that you're a better interviewer than I am.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
No, you absolutely, getting past Miranda is what, can't show off your skills.
That is what it is. Yeah.
Right.
But, this Beef's he's a great interviewer.
He is.
And he's very, and like I said, go on YouTube and see like the 150,000 people that watched your interview with Ramzami, and talk about what a great interview it was. So that was the reason.
He's very, and I'll say this, and everyone says I'm mean to him. He's very intellectual. He's extremely smart, and he thinks about everything. There's no, like I'm more like communication skills where I kind of, feel people out and kind of fly off the cuff a little bit. He's ultra like ready to go. And for those that don't know, he used to be an English teacher. So, we didn't even say Beef's like the guy that everyone brought their really in-depth reports to that they knew were going to go to the media to make sure, the commas were in the right place and everything grammatically was good.
Well, they only brought it to me once.
Yeah, that was before Grammarly, but that was he was an English major, so everything here, read it. Not like he didn't have his own stuff to do, but hey, can you read this 18-page supplement and correct it for me?
How about Todd would bring me his reports, and after a while, Todd was like, just do it for grammar and spelling. He's like, don't, because I would want to rewrite
don't
everything.
Change
He's
the
like,
content.
Yeah, just do grammar and spelling. I'm like, yes, Todd.
Hey, but go ahead, Mike.
The other thing I learned about Beef was that he's a hugger. And I was,
hey,
I'm Italian.
Too, but I'm not a hugger.
He's really huggly right now too. You haven't seen him in a while. We got to get you when you coming back down to Orlando. You got to get back down here.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I've been back 3 times this year because of trials and cases that still are catching up to me. And I've been retired for 3 years.
Freaking crazy, man.
I have. I know. I have. That's the other thing about homicide. My name's on a lot of stuff there, but yeah, I'll be back down in the fall because of a resentencing and the Best Vinocafer case. I know that.
Oh yeah.
So, but you know why? Because I'm getting stuff too. We all are. But how many years you been retired now?
3 years.
3. But COVID screwed that all up. COVID just stopped everything. So. Yeah. But before we've been on for a while here. But I got to tell a couple stories.
Okay.
And so Mike can correct me and he can add what he wants or whatever. So a couple things. So people probably are wondering, talking so highly about homicide detectives, and obviously I was never a homicide detective. And so, it was a passion that I think I would have, but to what Mike talked about of what you have to put into it, I could never do that with my schedule for football.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I could do robbery. That was a controlled chaos where I can investigate robbery and still travel. There's no way you're going to be a homicide investigator and travel.
You
Now,
can't do that,
the cold case contract that I have, it's part-time. So Mike Fields is full-time. I'll work probably 30 hours and so I'll still travel. So I never got an opportunity to try to go to homicide. But with that said, I used to get to work, because I had Fridays off for football because I travel. So I would get to work probably 5:36 in the morning. And Mike always used to get to work early. So the one thing I missed for the couple of years Mike retired before I did is I always sat at Mike's desk, had coffee. Yep. We talked sports. So that was, I missed that. But really the story I wanted to tell was, and there's a bunch of stories, but so Mike, we already chronicled that he's had multiple high profile cases.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I won't say the case, but he was working a very high profile case. And it was one of these ones where it was kind of all hands on deck,
right?
For detectives to help out. And I'm not giving anything away here because everybody knows that in investigations, you'll get wiretaps and you'll get phone taps and house taps and all that stuff when you get probable cause.
Sure.
So Mike was working a high profile case once, and we were doing, that was being done, and there's a certain room, a communication room where people are in. So in this case, and when I get done, Mike, correct whatever I screw up, but Mike there was all these photos. So it was like a slideshow, and I think Mike had to present it, I don't know, probably to the state attorney's office.
Right.
Okay? And someone took a picture. I'm in a room, and I'm sitting back in a chair, and my feet are up on the desk.
Right.
And that's in the picture. And Mike, we always laughed about that because Mike goes, "Oh, look at here's Rene working hard up against that picture." You remember that, right, Mike?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's that. Well, and that case in particular, there aren't too many days that still go by where I don't think about that one. But yeah, that was one of them. Yeah, and it's like, and that was intense, and for a couple months there, no doubt. But yeah, I do remember that picture because I still talk about that case in my classes, and that slide is still in there. Reed.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was appropriate to bring up the case name, but for the record, I'm pretty sure I hadn't gone on shift yet to do what I was supposed to do. So my feet were,
I was just getting ready for the shift.
Relaxed because I think it was like an overnight shift because. When we do cases like this, and Mike will tell you, when it's all hands on deck and you bring in other detectives because there's just, you basically, case like that, you're going 24/7 with technology.
Right.
Yeah. And so it was probably an overnight thing, and I was just sitting there relaxing. And listen, I'm a cool cucumber, I don't stress out with stuff. So, getting ready. And so, but that's in his slideshow. So he'll always remember that. So
watch this one.
Yeah. What do you have to be? You're a robbery detective making time and a half. What do you have to be stressed
Well, the other thing too, real quick,
3 in the morning.
before beef comes in here. So we all have a close personal friend, and you're super close to him. Chris Haas, who was another great detective, was a robbery detective. Now he's retired as well, but he works for the state attorney's office. He always used to get so pissed off because as a robbery detective, and he would really get pissed. As a robbery detective, you can literally, they're called APSs. So they're packages that we send to the state attorney's office.
Packages, yep.
The arrest package that they use for prosecution. So literally the homicide detectives, it's called a book, and it's a book for a reason. I mean, it's a 3-ring binder that's probably 300 pages? I mean, you tell me how many pages in some of these cases.
It's everything. It's
hundreds and hundreds of pages. So robbery, we will send over, I'm not joking, like a 10-page packet. And, you'll get a conviction for like 20 years. Yeah. And he would be so pissed off. He's like, that's bullshit. You guys do so little work. Because, and he used to say, and he was serious, he goes, bang for your buck. Robbery's the best unit because... You put people away.
Armed robbery, 30 years.
Where, you guys are working a year on a case and, you're given a 300-page packet and report and you're like, oh, the guy got 15 years.
Mikey, what if I said, what if I, go ahead.
Let him comment.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that was more about economic crime, which we affectionately call the chess club. Because they'd have these huge, complicated cases.
Yeah, no thank you.
And that guy would get probation.
Yeah.
It's like, for the most part, you charge somebody with first-degree murder. There's only 2 sentences in the state of Florida, life in prison or the death penalty.
Right. So, Mikey, what if I said deep-fried calzone?
Let me tell you something. That was, you know what, though? That was
Yeah.
That was kind of like the turning point. And this is what I would tell you while you're debating all this.
Yeah.
Because I think after you ate that is when you started running more.
Yeah, I think it probably was.
We did a couple of half marathons after you and I both did a couple of half marathons after that. So maybe make a trip over to Tampa. I don't remember the name of the place.
We'll find it.
We were over there on a case. In fact, I think it was Christina Grimmie's case.
Yeah.
But, beef had a deep fried calzone.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel bad about your decisions after you make that, then maybe your doctor's right about you, baby.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know,
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life. You know.
Yeah.
But Mike was a great travel planner. Wait, Mike, we got to tell.
Mike does good vacations too.
No, it's like even like listen, Mike can say, "Hey, listen, we're going to be over here.
Oh.
This is also over here, so we're going to hit this. Make it all work."
Well,
right?
and for the people that are listening, yes, when you're a detective and you travel out of town, which we often do, an hour away, 2 hours away, you always find the good restaurant in that area, and you're going to stop there.
So it was one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life, and I got to stop.
Mike was there this day, and this is just a funny story because I think I might have told this before, but it's to me, it's still one of the funniest days ever in the history of OPD. Have I told the story on air where the cheeseburger got spilled on Joe Capice's head?
No.
So this was probably, 15 years ago. And so I
wish I was there for that.
So when someone leaves CID, it used to be this way, and Mike knows because we were there for all of them. They don't do this anymore. But if someone was retiring or someone was just leaving the unit or something like that, basically all of CID would go and we'd find this restaurant and then, we take the back of the restaurant and there might be, 50 people there, 60 people there. So we were, what's the name of that joint down in Millennia? BJ's. We were at BJ's Brew House. Okay. And I know Mike was there that day because Haas was there. They were all there. And, Raul Rivas was there. And we talked about Raul on this show and because Raul travels now and talks about mental health to officers. So we were at this BJ's. It was all these big tables, and Raul had ordered cheeseburger, and the lady was bringing it up, and she dropped it, and it went right on Joe Capice's head. Now Joe Capice is a lieutenant still with HC, but good friend of all of ours.
Yeah,
and it just spilled. It's just the funniest thing to me. It's one of those things where you had to be there, and they never even discount. They didn't care about Raul. If they could have put it back together and just given it to Raul, they would have. They didn't discount it. But every time I looked over at Joe, there was a different piece of burger on him that he couldn't get off. It was like a shred of lettuce on his head or a tomato on his shoulder. I know Haas was sitting next to me, and I think Mike, you were at that table too. So whenever I think of that story, I don't know. I just laugh.
We have too many. There's so many good stories.
But the good old days.
That goes to too. You talked about these are folks that are charged with investigating the most serious cases of that you'll investigate, but we still find shit like that really funny.
Well, and
our buddy getting a cheeseburger, dumped on his head, and he did. And Chris Haas to this day, he will giggle like a 9-year-old when you bring that up, and it had to have happened 12 years ago.
Yeah, it was. I want to say it was probably 2012. So a good 2010, 2012. But I just the stories and I think it's important for people that aren't in law enforcement listening to this to understand it. You need those outlets.
I don't know. I got to tell the story about Mike. Were you there that time? And I won't mention the name of the. We have. She was like an intern or basically a volunteer. Were you there? Remember Haas had worked that unattended death, and the guy had he had some shoes on in the hot tub.
Right? Laughing already.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, it's
I know it. I know it.
Right. So, and I'm trying not to give anything away to identify anybody, but
just tell the story.
No, Haas is kind of just wrapping it up. He had gone out to it. It was like 3:00 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and we're all sitting around the office and we're talking about it because it is unusual somebody wearing shoes in a hot tub or whatever, and this volunteer gave this out of left field, you talk about out of the box, but this was out of left field, conspiracy theory that the person's wife killed this person because they put something in the shoes or something like that. And Haas's face was just classic. He was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" So I don't know. Were you there for that?
I was. It goes to something else you guys I think touched on before too. it's like we're now in that era of keyboard sleuths.
Yes.
Where you have, and this is what happens when amateur, and this is what I tell my students, it's like, and Beef, you're probably going to throw up because I drove this home to you all the time.
Right.
It's Occam's razor.
Yep.
We make it, there's a mystique around homicide investigations, but for the most part, the simplest explanation is the correct one. Not that somebody did some grand conspiracy to, do this person in, and then if you can defeat that most obvious solution, then you could go to some other things. But, that's it. It's like, that's what the keyboard sleuths always go to, these over the top movie of the week solutions. And it's like, if you find a woman dead, the husband, the significant other, that's going to be the first person and being able to eliminate them. So it's disprove the simplest explanation first before you. And that's, like I said, that was a good example of somebody who was an amateur, was a volunteer, interjecting something that she knew absolutely nothing about.
His face was classic.
It's fun to watch our friend's head explode. Because you talk about, I had a long fuse, he had a short fuse.
Oh yeah.
Before we let you go, Mike, how's your golf game?
It's not good. I live in a golf club community. I live in Conisty Falls, North Carolina. Well, it's Brevard, but it's Conisty Falls. And we have a beautiful golf course. And by the way, you two jackasses need to come up.
Yeah, we do. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't have a shot like that shot if the ball is above or below my feet. That's every shot in North Carolina.
Really?
As opposed to Florida, where everything's flat. It's like, I can't. It's like the best I've ever shot here at this course is a 93. And I've shot way higher than that too.
I would take a 93 all day long.
It's beautiful though. It's a beautiful golf course. So I'll say that it's your day's not going to be ruined by shooting 120 on that course, because it's just a nice place. And,
right.
Well, the thing is too, is that what I've realized is my neighbor Ed Hall, he's a dentist out in Charlotte, and he and I play, and he introduced me to golf at 2:00 in the afternoon, which is totally counter to Florida.
Yeah.
This time of year, you're teeing off at 7:30, so you can be off at noon. But 2:00 here is very pleasant, and the course is pretty much empty.
I was going to say, no one's playing. That's the perfect time.
Yeah.
And it's the temperature. We've had a couple days in the 90s the last few weeks, but that's very rarely does it get.
We played. Beef and I played Saturday. Okay, and I just, number one, if you want to go out early, you got to get a tee time, and I just don't want to screw around. So I said, let the early wave go. I like to get up in the morning, have my coffee, and relax. I said, we'll go later. So we ended up teeing off at 10:30ish. We got out as a twosome, and it was about 100 degrees. It's just, but it was all right. And then we ran into some foursomes, but it's my home course. So I said, let's just skip these. We'll pass these people and skip 3 holes. So we ended up playing 15 holes. It was good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. My golf game is, it's the same as it was. In retirement, you would think you'd get better at it, but I really not.
Well, listen, football season's coming up anyway, so I'm excited, and we'll stay in touch. And You didn't tell the story about when I beat Beef up at my Super Bowl party because I had too much to drink. That was how many years ago? That was the first Super Bowl party I had.
That was the Super Bowl party where I won like $600.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And people were pissed off because we were doing we would do the squares. And I had like 2 squares that I needed to sell to fill out all the squares. And Mike bought those 2 squares when he walked in my door before the game kicked off, and he ended up winning.
Yeah, because it was like the least entertaining. It was the New England,
and I think that's why I drank so much, because it was boring. And then, needless to say, I couldn't make it to work.
Did he bite
on Monday?
Did he bite somebody that night, Mike?
Probably didn't he bite you?
Yeah, he did. He bit me. That's right. Yeah, he bit me. He did. Yeah, tried to bite my foot.
Yeah, it was like the beating was like.
For the record, that wasn't at the Gridiron Ranch. That was a house ago.
Yeah,
that was a house ago.
That was the other house.
So
that was the other house.
Hitting him with his own shoe, hitting him with the garbage can lid, just like Sonny did to Carlo.
Sonny Carlo. Oh, jeez. Yeah. So, anyways,
Mike, thanks so much, my friend, for joining us. This was great stuff. We're gonna have you back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're coming back. Yeah.
Well, in all seriousness, once I get going, and if everything goes right. The speed in which the city of Orlando moves through this process isn't like lightning. But I'm thinking a couple weeks I'll be in there. I mean, I honestly, and I'll obviously would. It's going to be up to Mike and talk to Mike. I would love, to an extent, what we can present.
Yeah.
I would love to present some of the cold cases because the one that I think that we're going to start with, there's multiple podcasts out about that case already.
Yeah.
Now, I guess you got to be careful as the actual investigators.
Sure.
But I don't know. I think there's something to being transparent with some stuff with the public. I don't know. That's just my thought, but I could be wrong.
Puts it back in the...
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to generate new leads.
Correct.
What is holding back some information really, help with?
Yeah.
It's like the case has been cold for almost 30, 35 years, I think, if it's the same.
It is.
You know what, Mike?
It is.
I for lack of anything else, it's like I'm familiar with most of the cold cases at OPD and having, and I tested a lot of stuff. And again, I think we're talking about the same case. We'll talk about it off air, but to make sure. But I threw everything against the wall on that case and come up with nothing. So, but yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. And see anything a little bit can help because it's like I said, most cases get solved because of new technology.
Right.
But again, it doesn't mean that they're not worth your attention. So. No, I'm happy for you, Rene. I think you'll have a good time with it. And, again, going back into it is a little lower stress. Like you said, you're a contract worker, and it's like, if one day they tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, this isn't working out, or we thought you guys would solve a lot more before then, he's like, okay.
Yeah, thanks. And plus, they got a new coffee machine there, I just found out. So
They got a new one?
Ooh.
yeah, they got a new one.
They replaced the
other one broke, I guess.
Well, yeah, because nobody took care of it.
Well, so I'm all about the free coffee. So that's part of the game.
Yeah,
so.
that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, free
Huge.
coffee. So, well, Mike, listen, I think it goes without saying, we really appreciate your time and always good to talk to you. We miss you down here.
Yeah, we do. Miss you, buddy.
And we'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, miss you guys.
All right.
All right, Mike.
Take care, Mikey.
Talk to you.
Bye.
The great Mike Moreschi, and we muted him because we're going to talk about him again. So if he's still on the line, hang on there, Mike, and we'll talk off air. If not, we'll just call you back. But yeah, good show.
Yeah.
See, the spontaneous ones I think are better.
They're better. Yeah. So I think you're going to have fun with the cold case stuff. It's going to be an eye opener, like we talked about.
No, it will be. But I mean, to have a resource like Mike that's actually been through a lot of those cases, and you've been through a lot of those cases, and just to get in there and see if we can't solve one.
Sure.
I'm very competitive. You know that.
Sure.
And I think that's a challenge.
In this job that we do, nothing is more rewarding than being able to go to a loved one and say, hey, we have the person who killed your loved one and they're arrested and they've been charged. Do you understand what I'm saying?
And I think
for us,
the attribute that I'm going to bring to it is, Mike said it, I think communication skills, partnering up with Mike Fields. If we do have to do interviews, that communication part of it, because Mike Fields is now the DNA expert, which was handed down from Mike Moreschi. So he's got that part covered. But I think I'm going to bring a different element. So hopefully we'll be able to solve one. But we'll keep it posted as we go.
Hey, keep trying. That's all you can do. And if you put the work in, eventually something's going to fall into place.
So good show. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode of The Professional Rookies.
Do you want to tell them to give us 5 stars and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, 5 stars, please. Move us up the algorithm. We all know what those damn algorithms do. 5 stars. Don't give us 4. 5 only, and give us a good write-up. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a good week, everybody.